Hello friends, here I am with next part of this story. I hope you all like the video and subscribe to my channel. So let's start the video with summary. After years of infidelity, Zeus finally decides to commit to his marriage with Hera. It is the start of a new era for Olympus and the start of the life of a new god. The young god, chapter 3. Zeus, with a series of trickery and deceit, made Kronos regurgitate the previously consumed gods and goddesses, which are now known as the original Olympians. Within the temple of Athena, a large library stood, an edifice of 10 stories. It was a beacon of knowledge and wisdom upon Mount Olympus. Designed by the goddess herself, Athena's library was the most extensive and thorough collection of knowledge in existence and contains ancient documents mortals would die for. Even from afar, the other temple of the gods, the tall beacon could be seen, almost as eye-catching as the tall Athena Parthenon that stood as the symbol of the temple. All of Athena's children would kill for a chance to explore their mother's library, and only a selected few ever got the chance. It was truly a magnificent structure of significance, but according to Naruto, it looked like a weird pencil. Athena whined the 3-year-old god, "You've read this story 100 times already. I've read it 10 times, and you still haven't memorized it yet." The goddess of wisdom stood over her younger brother and gave him a stern stare that would make the strongest warrior shiver, but her brother just pouted at her, his blue eyes as bright as the stars. "This is our family history and perhaps one of the most important moments of our existence. I know, I've heard this story from you and from Mommy." The small boy, wearing a simple white chiton with a golden laurel placed upon his spiky blonde hair, rested his head on his hand. "Kronos is my evil grandfather who ate everyone except for Dad, and he was defeated by Dad, my mommy, and her uncles and aunts." "And what is this war named?" "The Titanomachy," replied the boy, looking up at his sister who had her arms crossed. Athena nodded, but lightly smacked Naruto's head with the textbook. "You're correct, but don't slouch." The boy sat up tall and pouted, "And don't pout." The goddess had clearly noticed that despite his lack of physical growth at the moment, her little brother was much more mentally developed than other children his age. His vocabulary was already quite large and he could communicate very well. If he would only be more motivated at times, he'd be perfect. "Can we do something fun now?" Athena sighed and sat down next to her brother. "And what is fun?" Naruto grinned and hugged one of Athena's arms. "Well, you can teach me how to use aegis and to fight with a spear." The boy's smile was as contagious as ever and Athena couldn't help but smile back. "I'm sure your training will be much more fun and exciting than Nike's." Even at 3 years old, Naruto knew how to convince his sister to do things. "Please, I want to learn from the coolest goddess on Olympus." "You are one tricky little boy, aren't you?" Athena wrapped an arm around Naruto's shoulders and kissed his hair. "Yep. But no, I won't teach you how to fight." She raised her hand and silenced Naruto before he could speak. "Father had asked Nike to teach you and I'm sure she is a good teacher with a very positive outlook. I will teach you when you are finished with her training and when you actually pass my classes, which means getting A's on every test." "That's not fair." "Of course it is." Naruto pouted and crossed his small arms. "Fine, but if I do all those things, you have to teach me how to fight." Athena extended her pinky with a smile. "I pinky promise." The boy happily hooked his pinky with his sister's. "Pinky promise." The goddess of wisdom kissed her baby brother's forehead and ruffled his hair, feeling much more love for him than any of her other brothers. Her plan of keeping Naruto from adopting the sleazy and obnoxious habits of the others working perfectly. Along with Artemis, Athena planned to teach Naruto a great deal and form him into a proper and decent god with great respect for all, men and women. There should at least be one male god on Olympus without the mindset of the old age, and Naruto will be the new blood they all needed. Suddenly, a bright light appeared in the middle of the library and tore Athena's attention away from her giggling brother. "There he is, my second most annoying brother. Lil Bro." Apollo, the god of the sun, manifested from the light in his usual beach shorts and tank top. He wore a pair of sunglasses on his head instead of his usual laurel, something Athena wouldn't mind having if her brother wouldn't stop glowing. Apollo's smile displayed his bright pearly whites and he spread his arms as he walked up to Naruto. He laughed as he picked the boy up and placed him on his shoulders. Naruto was laughing and held onto his brother's head. "Good morning, Apollo Nikan." "There's my awesome lil bro," announced Apollo loudly as he bounced Naruto up and down on his shoulders. smiling at the laughter of the toddler. Ever since the young god was born, Apollo was determined to become his favorite brother, and so far he was successful. The first hurdle was Ares, which was basically trying to step over a foot-tall fence. Naruto despised the warmonger and hated how the war god would make him angry with his war aura. Then Dionysus was no better, basically an old drunk without a spine. Apollo's real competition came in the form of Hermes and Hephaestus, who both constantly tried to buy Naruto's love with cool weapons, armor and talking snakes stuck to a pole. But Naruto didn't need to worry. Apollo Nikan was here for the rescue. Do you have to teach him to call you that, Apollo? Athena sighed and shook her head at her sunny brother. Naruto is a prince of Olympus, not some Japanese child. Hey, his name is Japanese, so there is nothing wrong with him calling me Nikan. Apollo grinned and gave Athena a look. You're just jealous I'm so much closer to him. Athena rolled her eyes. Whatever you say, Apollo. The god of prophecies lifted his brother from his shoulders and placed him in his arms. So you ready to go, kiddo? Naruto nodded with a grin. Yep. See y'all later, Athena. The young god gave his sister a smile. Bye, Athena. Athena sighed again and watched her baby brother wave goodbye at her as Apollo enveloped him in a blinding light. She didn't like having Apollo teach Naruto about the human world. If it were up to Athena, she would teach Naruto everything and Artemis should show him around the globe. The last thing she wanted was for Naruto to adopt the same qualities as his brothers. A poem-obsessed, womanizing Naruto wasn't something she ever wanted to see. I'll have to make sure that Naruto listens to me more than that sunny idiot. Where are we going today, Nikan? Chirped the tiny god as he sat in a car seat on Sol, Apollo's sun chariot. Since his little brother was on board, the sun god morphed his chariot into the form of a Mini Cooper. The Maserati was a little too much for a family car. Can we go to Tokyo again? I'm hungry and I want ramen. Sorry, but no Japan today, Apollo grinned, but don't worry little bro, we're going to a place with pretty good food. Since Apollo regularly made trips around the world on his chariot, Zeus had tasked him to teach Naruto about the world. In the past year, the sun god had toured the world with his little brother. They went camping and fishing in British Columbia, caught a hockey game in Detroit, went to a soccer game in London, had a feast in Tokyo, went hiking in South America, and visited a safari in Africa. Naruto loved every single place they visited, but much to Apollo's eternal joy, he loved Japan and the ramen they serve, though there was nothing like visiting Greece with the new god. Athena had already read Naruto a few stories of their time in Greece, and Apollo brought him there to show him, brought him to their old home. Athens, Sparta and Delphi looked nothing like they used to, but it was still a sight to see. The nostalgia was lost to the young god, but Apollo had the time of his life showing his brother where everything used to be. He showed Naruto the stone mother it used to trick Kronos, the ancient cave Zeus grew up in, and of course, the ancient site of the oracle. He decided to skip over the ruins of Troy. That damn place still made him sick. Are we going to Shanghai? Asked the boy curiously. I could eat some dumplings again. Nope, we're staying in the United States today. Not McDonald's. Whined the god of the four wines. Apollo laughed and patted his baby bro's hair. Don't worry, I'm not bringing you to that horrid place ever again. The last time the sun god brought Naruto to a McDonald's, the boy blasted the Ronald McDonald clown into pieces with a bolt of lightning. Thank Hecate that the miss made the mortals as oblivious as ever. You might accidentally kill someone this time. I don't like clowns. Don't worry kiddo, there are no clowns where we're going. We're going to a place with a lot of pretty girls. Boring, pouted the boy as he crossed his arms. You wouldn't say that when you're older, lil bro. Looking down from his chariot, Apollo accelerated, wanting to arrive at their destination sooner. The mortals would just have to suffer a shorter day. His father had said not to bring Naruto to Camp Half-Blood or Camp Jupiter yet, but there was one more place they could visit that would be quite fun. Apollo understood why his father didn't want Naruto to see the camps yet. He was still very young and he shouldn't let mortals see him until he was older and had the stature of a true god. Not to mention that the Romans and Greeks ordeal. Soon, more and more demigods at the camps will be praying to Naruto, and from their prayers he will develop more. Unlike the others, he probably wouldn't have two separate aspects, Greek and Roman, since he didn't live through the different eras, but it would be easier for him if he was more developed. Are we there yet? Almost. Just sit back and take in the scenery. Apollo watched as his brother peered out the window, resting his head against the door with a bored look on his face. As a god of sight, he couldn't help but wonder how Naruto's life would turn out. Even with his glimpses into the future, Apollo couldn't tell. As a son of Zeus and Hera, it would only be natural for Naruto to become a powerful god. For some reason, Apollo couldn't shake the feeling that his little brother would play a part of the great prophecy, maybe even the lead role. Some cloud nymphs and wind nymphs followed after Soul and waved happily at Naruto, paying a kind tribute to their lord, the commander of the four winds. Naruto, being the child that he was, giggled and waved back to the spirits, making the gush and giggle at how adorable their young lord looked. After Ares and Hephaestus, Apollo could see the surprise of the spirits whenever they could see Naruto. He was much more normal. "Okay, we're here." Apollo grinned as he set his chariot to autopilot and placed a hand on Naruto's shoulders. The one good thing about visiting places so close to home, the ride just takes minutes. The two godly siblings were enveloped in a shroud of sunlight and vanished from the chariot. "Where are we?" "In the middle of Kansas somewhere," answered the god of the sun with his hands placed in his pockets. "You should get familiar with this place. Your subordinates often unleash tornadoes here and you will be getting reports from them when you're older." "Okay," muttered the boy, not really understanding. He hadn't even met his subordinates yet. Apollo squinted his eyes and looked out at the open fields. His golden hair looked to be glowing as the sun shined above them. Naruto held onto his brother's hand and tried to see if there was anything around, but his eyes weren't as good as his older brother. Apollo smiled when he saw something a fair distance away and tugged at Naruto's hand. "Wait for me here, okay?" The god of the sun smirked. "Don't wander off. I'll be back to get you in a second." "Okay, but hurry up." "You got it, lil bro." "I'll go the speed of light." Naruto shrugged as his brother vanished with a flash of light. He was getting used to seeing such things. The boy merely sat down in the middle of the giant golden field of wheat, a place he knew his Aunt Demeter would love. Perhaps it was because of his domain, but Naruto felt very comfortable lying in the fields with nothing but the sounds of blowing wind as music. With a smile, he levitated himself and hovered just above the crops, floating weightlessly as he stared up at the blue sky and white clouds. He plucked up a shard of wheat and played with it as he sighed. His mind couldn't help but wander back to the lessons Athena had taught him and how she mentioned that the sky was actually their great-grandfather, Uranos. At first Naruto was extremely excited to learn about the primordial of the sky, wondering if he was as cool as his dad, but the story soon turned sour. Naruto couldn't really understand how Uranos would treat his children so badly. The young god couldn't even imagine his mommy and dad throwing him into Tartarus. It made him uncomfortable thinking about it. Then Athena told him the story of Kronos and Rhea. That made Naruto feel even worse. He loved his grandma. All the stories with such terrible fathers just made Naruto feel sick. In his opinion, all fathers should love their children, just like how Zeus loved him. Hey, some giggling broke Naruto out of his thoughts and made him look over. It was pretty far away, but Naruto heard some girls laughing. Sometimes the wind would carry to him sounds from far away. Floating higher into the air, Naruto saw a group of girls setting up some sort of tents around a farmhouse. It was the one place in the large wheat field with a small forest of tall oak trees, and the girls were running around in the shade. They were all wearing silver hoodies and silver camouflage pants, and for some reason they had some sort of aura of power surrounding them. It looked fun and felt interesting. By the time Naruto found a smile on his face, he was already flying over to the girls. The closer he got to the group of girls, the more familiar their auras felt, but he couldn't exactly place it. Nonetheless, they were all playing tag around a series of oak trees, which looked very fun. Some of the girls only looked a few years older than Naruto, and some of the other girls stood along the ready tents, smiling at the others. The whole scene felt very peaceful and fun, and Naruto just couldn't help but want to join. "Hello!" The piece couldn't have left quicker. "Who goes there?" demanded one of the older girls. In an instant, every single girl had bows in their hands with arrows knocked and ready. Naruto dropped to his feet and raised his hands, very surprised at the sudden hostility. These girls were nothing like the kind nymphs he was used to seeing around the sky or the wind. They looked like they were mad at him, like he did something really wrong. The aura around them flared and they all had more power than before. Granted, they were still really weak compared to what he was used to facing, It was still surprising. Hi, one of the older girls lowered her bow and walked forward. Normal human children can't see through the mist, so who are you and why are you here? Naruto scratched the back of his head. My brother brought me here for lunch and I just happened to see you all here. What do you want, boy? I just wanted to play. The girl raised an eyebrow. That's it, not any other perverted reason? Chloe, relax. Another girl who looked older than the rest placed a hand on Chloe's shoulder. He's just a child. I think he might be a clear-sighted mortal or a son of some wheat nymph around here. But Phoebe, don't worry. I don't see any malice in his eyes. The girl gave Naruto a small smile as she crossed her arms. He's just a small child. He is far too young at the moment to be treated like other men. Phoebe stepped closer to the boy, mildly impressed that he looked so calm when there were so many arrows aimed at his head. What is your name, child? Naru. What is all the commotion about? A sudden voice pierced through the wind as everyone turned to the direction of the tents. An older girl, around the age of 16, stepped forward and all the hunters gave her a small bow. There was a silver tiara on her forehead and she looked very pretty in Naruto's opinion, like a princess on those cartoons Apollo would show him. My lady had asked everyone to complete setting up camp. Zoe, a boy found his way into our camp. Chloe pointed over at Naruto with a frown. What should we do with him? Naruto gave the girl a smile, one that would have melted the heart of any human girl, but Zoe didn't react to it. These girls are a little weird. Zoe, is something the matter? Naruto was further confused when all the girls suddenly fell to their knees and bowed toward the direction of the series of tents, where one girl stood. His eyes squinted to get a better look. It was a young girl, around the age of the younger girls around him, and she had auburn hair, a shade that looked very familiar. Then he saw her silvery eyes and felt her extremely powerful aura, and instantly, a bright smile appeared on his face. Before any of the girls could react, Naruto sped over to the girl like a swift breeze of wind and wrapped his arms around her waist. Artie. Every single girl, including the really nice Phoebe, immediately aimed their arrows at Naruto and glared at him with as much hate as possible. Get your filthy hands off of my lady, right now! Cried Zoe loudly. Relax, Zoe, ordered Artemis with a hand raised before she sighed. He means no harm at all. Naruto giggled and bounced up and down. I've missed you so much, Artie. He smiled up at his sister, looking extremely happy. I haven't seen you for such a long time. It's only been a week, Naru. Artemis smiled softly and ruffled Naruto's hair. The huntress would visit Olympus every weekend to attend the Council of the Gods, and by tradition she shared with her sisters, stepmother and aunt. They would all sit around the main hearth and have tea. Since Naruto was born he would also be there at most times, and Artemis loved it. Not only did she like spending time with her little brother, her Aunt Hestia would bake much more cookies when the boy was present, and Naruto would always share a lot with her. Why do you look so different? Naruto's curious expression made Artemis smile even brighter. You're like me? The goddess gave a soft laugh. This is my child form, and it is still older than you, little boy. Artemis glowed and transformed into her usual form when she would visit Olympus, her 20-year-old form. Zoe and the other hunters retracted their bows and arrows. My lady, who is this boy? Artemis sighed and lifted Naruto into her arms, smiling as he wrapped his arms around her neck and snuggled against her. This is Naruto, the youngest son of my father and Lady Hera, the god of violent storms and commander of the four winds, and my little brother. Naruto smiled and waved. Hello! All the girls' eyes widened and they bowed their heads at the boy, utterly shocked that they almost shot the youngest prince of Olympus. They had heard about the child Lady Hera gave birth to a few years ago, but they had never seen him. They had assumed that like many other gods, he would be fully grown and not still be a child. But nonetheless, they would have never expected the god of violent storms to suddenly stumble into their camp. Some were relieved that they didn't fire upon the young god. The last thing they wanted was for a tornado to suddenly destroy the wheat field, or Kansas. We're sorry, Lord Naruto. Naruto giggled at the pretty lady. It's okay. These are my hunters, Naruto. Artemis proudly showed her followers to her brother with a smile. I've wanted you to meet them for a while, but it seems your idiot brother deemed it necessary to bring you here without telling anyone. The goddess of the moon glared behind her. Get out here, you big ball of gas. Relax, lil sis. Apollo had a grin on his face as he stepped into view, making almost all the hunters glare at him as they bowed. I wanted to show Lil Bro your hunters and was about to warn you about him, but he found his own way here. The sun god gave his brother a small poke on the forehead, making him pout, and I told you to stay where I left you. But you were taking so long, Nikan. You're lucky my hunters didn't take Naru for a pervert and start shooting him full of arrows. Apollo scoffed. I know you're proud of your hunters, sis, but they won't ever hurt Naruto. The hunters frowned at the dismissive tone, but didn't comment on it. He may be young and little, but he trains with Nike every day and can control his domains pretty well. I doubt any arrow from your girls would ever hit him. Nonetheless, you were being stupid. Artemis pulled on Apollo's ear, making him yelp, and for the last time, I am the older twin. I am your older sister. Naruto only giggled happily as the sight of his brother and sister, seemingly used to their antics. He would have watched the scene longer, but he was really hungry. Artie, I'm really hungry, he said as he rubbed his belly. Do you have anything to eat? Artemis released Apollo, who immediately nursed his purple ear. Yes, we were about to have lunch. She turned to Phoebe. Please ready 2 more portions, Phoebe. As much as detest Apollo having lunch with us, I would like to show Naruto around the hunt. Yes, my lady. Artemis smiled and brought Naruto to the large and tall tent that sheltered a long dinner table capable of sitting all of the hunters plus a few more. The goddess sat at the head of the table and glared at Apollo when he sat next to her, but seeing that Naruto was in her arms, she didn't want to make another scene in front of him. In accordance to Athena, Artemis was trying as hard as she could to groom Naruto into a proper male god. Soon the hunters all filtered into the tent, many of them carrying large and full plates of food. The long table was quickly filled to the brim with food, roasted boar and chicken with mountains of salads made from freshly picked greens and berries. Artemis filled a plate and placed it in front of Naruto. Give it a try, Naru. It's not as good as Aunt Hestia's food, but it is still quite delicious. Thanks, Artie. The twins smiled at the sight of Naruto shoving the food into his mouth. He had gotten bored of the ambrosias and nectar on Olympus. Sometimes it was just better to try something different. The boy looked happy to have lunch with so many people. He really appreciated family, just like his mother. Both Apollo and Artemis had noticed that ever since Naruto was born, everyone enjoyed having dinner together more at night, even Hephaestus stopped being so reclusive. Naruto was quickly becoming the glue of the Olympians. Is there anything else you need, my lady? Artemis smiled and shook her head at her lieutenant. Everything is fine, Zoe. Take a seat and join us. Zoe smiled and nodded. Yes, my lady. Naru, this is Zoe Nightshade, my lieutenant. Zoe bowed a little at the young god as Naruto smiled. Zoe's really pretty. His squeaky voice seemed to cut through conversations and many hunters looked over at him and Zoe, who looked surprised at the child's words. Even Artemis herself looked surprised. Thank you, Lord Naruto. Ho ho. Laughed Apollo as he grinned at his brother. Already have a crush on a hunter, lil bro? Artemis hissed and smacked Apollo's head. Shut up, idiot. What's a crush? Asked Naruto looking up at his sister. Nothing, absolutely nothing. Artemis gestured back to the food. Come. Let us continue our lunch. Apollo had a grin on his face the whole meal. Just like other gods, Naruto should have quite the interest in the ladies, and even if Athena and Artemis were to shelter him so much, it wouldn't change anything. Apollo could already see himself bringing Naruto to a club in California with Hermes. It would be awesome to see his brother grow into a real man. He wouldn't be excited for his reaction, but sooner or later, they might have to build a cabin for Naruto at Camp Half-Blood. Artemis, who looked like she knew what her twin was thinking, glared at him with her eyes glowing silver, making him look away with a smirk. As if protecting Naruto from Apollo, Artemis lifted her little brother and placed him on her lap, making sure to block out the sun god. The hunters were a little shocked that their patron goddess was being so affectionate to a boy, even though he was her little brother, though most of them were fine with it since Naruto was only a child. Naruto looked around the camp as he munched on his salad. Can you teach me how to shoot arrows, Artie? Hey! Cried Apollo, you asked me to teach you that. Artemis smirked and wrapped her arms around Naruto. Naru is obviously a smart god and he wants to learn from the more skilled archer. Apollo glowered at his sister. His reputation for his brother was very important. After all, I've been hunting since ancient times and you've basically stopped using your bow since you started chasing girls. Naruto grinned. It's okay, Nikan. Apollo frowned, but looked at his brother. I still want you to teach me, but I want Artie to teach me too. Apollo smiled and patted his head. Fine. Artemis gave a small laugh and held Naruto tighter. You have a lot of teachers, don't you? Naruto smiled and continued to snack on his food. Nike is teaching you. We are teaching you, and I'm pretty sure Father is going to teach you how to use lightning. The hunters stared at Naruto and wondered how powerful he would become when he fully matured. Don't let it get to your head, Naru. Pay attention to Athena and make sure you take her lessons into account. I will, muttered the boy as he reached for more food. Artemis smirked. You don't want to develop a big head like your brothers. Haha. Apollo sighed, already regretting their visit to the hunters' camp. My lady, we're finished. Zoe stood with the other hunters and bowed to the goddess and gods. Phoebe and I will start the afternoon training for the girls. Alright, go ahead, Zoe. Naruto smiled at the pretty girl. Bye, Zoe. Zoe bowed. Thank you, my lady, and goodbye, Lord Naruto. Apollo was about to say something, but one look from his twin changed his mind. He didn't want to take another arrow out of his ear, though he did find Naruto's comments to Zoe incredibly amusing. If the youngest son of Zeus and Hera developed feelings for Artemis' oldest hunter, Aphrodite would have a field day. That kind of drama would be like an amplified version of Paris and Helen. And as much as Artemis loved Naruto, Apollo wasn't sure how she would react if her little brother tried to take Zoe away from the hunt. Artie? Asked Naruto as he stared at the girls walking away from the tent. Artemis adjusted her little brother's position on her lap and looked down at him. What is it? She asked as she kissed the top of his head, feeling no more hesitation to smother Naruto with affection with her hunters gone. Why were some of the girls glaring at me when they saw me? Naruto looked genuinely confused. Did I do something wrong? Artemis smiled sadly and shook her head. No, some of the girls just had some bad experiences with boys in the past. Oh, like how I don't like Aries? Apollo smiled and shook his head. No, lil bro, those girls have it way worse. He sighed and rested back on his seat. Honestly, we gods will never really understand mortals, especially since your parents love you so much. Artemis nodded. Zeus is a great father and he loves all of us very much, and Lady Hera loves you more than anything. She frowned and thought back to her hunters, surrogate daughters. Many mortal men are terrible fathers and treat their daughters badly, and they join my hunt sometimes to get away from all of that. Bad fathers. Naruto thought back to the stories of Uranus and Kronos. Apollo nodded with a toothpick held between his lips. As strict as the old man is, he is a good father and cares for all of us. But I can personally say that I see terrible fathers all the time, and I see everything. The sun god snapped his fingers and pointed at his twin. That reminds me, I have a list of homes with bad father and little daughters for you. Artemis nodded. Good, my newer hunters need some practice. That's wrong, muttered the boy softly. Fathers should all be loving and kind and should protect their children, just like Dad. Naruto had always enjoyed having his dad tucking him in at night or have him hug him in the morning. It made him feel safe. I don't want to see bad fathers. Artemis smiled and ruffled Naruto's hair. That's good. It means that you're already a better man than most. Apollo smiled. Come on kiddo, I'll show you how to hold a bow. Naruto nodded. Okay. The twins both looked at their brother a little concerned. He was acting a little strange and was lacking his usual enthusiasm. Mount Olympus, Temple of Zeus mommy! Cried Naruto as he ran into his father's temple. Zeus and Hera were both enjoying the latest works of Apollo's children in Hollywood and both of them smiled when they saw their little boy run into the living room. Since Naruto's birth, the king and queen had both decided to live full-time in Zeus' temple. It was easier to keep everything in one place, especially since Zeus will always spend the night with his wife now. The Temple of Zeus had turned into a much cozier and homely place, and Hera was falling in love with it all over again. There's my baby boy. Hera scooped Naruto into her arms and pulled him close, kissing the top of his head as she sat back down on the sofa. Zeus smiled and patted his son's head, chuckling when Naruto sent him a bright grin. How was your day with Apollo, my son? Naruto crawled from his mother's lap to his father's and smiled up at him. It was great. We went to Artie's hunter camp and we had lunch together. Zeus smiled and rubbed his son's head, which was really small compared to his large hand. We watched the hunters shoot at their archery range and Nikan and Artie taught me how to hold a bow. Hera giggled along with her husband's chuckle, and the hunters were all pretty nice in the end, and Zoe is very pretty. Very pretty, huh? Zeus smiled as he flicked his son's forehead. You like her? Hera shoved her husband, giving him a look. So you had a fun day? Very fun, and guess what? Zeus chuckled. What? From now on, I will also be the god of fatherhood and family. Zeus choked on his breath and Hera's eyes widened. I've decided that I don't want to see bad fathers anymore and I want to look over that domain. He smiled at his mother. Is that okay, Mommy? I want to watch over families just like you and Annie Hestia. That's fine with me. The queen managed a small smile. Family is the one domain that should have more gods and goddesses. She looked at her husband. Right, dear? Zeus cleared his throat and nodded. Yes, those are fine choices, son. Cool. Naruto grinned at his parents. So from now on, I am the god of violent storms, commander of the four winds, and god of fatherhood and family. The end. I hope you all liked this chapter. The pairing of this story is still undecided. The young god. Chapter 4. Mommy. Naruto whined with a pout as his mother held him in her arms, hugging him close as they walked back to their home. He didn't feel tired at all and felt he could still train more. It was cruel to not allow him to practice after teaching him how to become omnipresent. Naruto almost managed to manifest himself at 10 places at once, and he was close to achieving 11 places. At least he was until his mother came and carried him away like a baby. Hera shook her head. No, your sister has left on her chariot already, so it's nighttime and you should be resting. The queen gently kissed the side of Naruto's head and rubbed her cheek against his soft hair. And you've been training too much lately. You need to spend more time with me and your father. I spend time with you every day, exclaimed the boy with his arms crossed. 1 hour every day is not enough, said the goddess of motherhood as she smiled at her baby boy. You're still a child and you should be with your parents all the time. If you're like this now, your father and I will never see you when you're grown up. I'm the god of family and fatherhood, Mommy. Of course I would spend time with my family. Naruto hugged his mother around her neck and kissed her cheek. You don't have to worry. Hera smiled as she walked into the temple of Zeus, nodding back to the dozens of servants bowing to her and her son. Everyone had gotten used to seeing the new god in his mother's arms at this time of night and the happy smile on the queen's face. Since Naruto's birth there were no more fights or spats between Zeus and Hera, and the servants were all relieved. Many of them had died as collateral damage. The temple of Zeus had also changed. There were a lot more furniture for families instead of throne-like on seats and the king would be home every single night. Lady Hera would spend almost every night at her husband's temple, and when she didn't, Lord Zeus would be over at the temple of Hera. Overall, the king and queen of Olympus had never been so close and in love. Can I not go to Athena's lesson tomorrow, Mommy? Asked Naruto while rubbing his eyes, his exhaustion starting to show itself. Nikan is bringing me to Hef's Forge and I want to go there for the entire day. Maybe, replied the queen. Hera was conflicted about Naruto being so close to his half-siblings at first, but in the end she was happy to see her son so happy with them. Athena and Artemis often tried to prevent Naruto's brothers from affecting him with their idiosyncrasies, which was great in Hera's books. And even though there was a chance that Apollo and Hermes may still turn Naruto into a playboy, they were still good big brothers and loved Naruto greatly. Then there was Hephaestus, who Hera was very happy to see Naruto being close to. Her crippled son had suffered enough already from her and her husband's hands over the years, and the queen was relieved to see him finally bond with his family. Since Naruto's birth, Hephaestus started to become more social with others and actually started to attend family dinners on a nightly basis. Naruto's presence as the god of family was truly becoming the glow of Olympus. Please, pleaded the boy with puppy dog eyes, I really want to go to the forges. Hef said he'd make me a new sword. Hera smiled, Finn, not tomorrow, honey. Zeus smiled at his wife and son as he greeted them in the living room of his temple, clearly having heard his son's request. His smile grew when Hira sat down next to him on the sofa and when Naruto crawled over onto his lap, grinning up at him with all the innocence in the world. It had been almost 7 years since Naruto had been born, and he was still a child, something that Zeus and his wife were thankful for. All their children grew up too fast. It was nice to have one who grew at a slower pace. Tomorrow is April 22nd, honey. Zeus smiled as he ruffled his son's hair. It should be a good day for us to show Naruto Camp Jupiter. Hira hummed and nodded as she crossed her arms. Sure, I think it is time for him to see the camps anyway. April 22nd, the festival of Jupiter and Juno, was one of the most important days for the Romans. It was a day they paid tribute to their most important god and goddess, the king and queen of Olympus. Every year, Camp Jupiter would have countless offerings for them and will host a large party for everyone in Camp and New Rome. Their temples will be filled with even more prayers than usual and the other gods would sometimes contribute as well. Naruto grinned. So I finally get to see the Roman camp? Hira smiled and nodded. Yes, you should get to know these places. The queen's hair started to morph from being golden blonde to obsidian black. Her long wild dress turned into black robes with an overlaying goatskin cloak. You don't have a Roman aspect, but you should get familiar with them and how they behave. After all, you might have to teach them a lesson as a god of family and fatherhood. Zeus' appearance changed as well. His beard and hair turned blonde and well-trimmed and his dress shirt and slacks turned into a purple toga with a golden trimming. You are the godly prince, my son, and they will bow down to you. Naruto could clearly tell that in the Roman aspects, Juno and Jupiter were stricter, but their eyes were no less warm and loving when they looked at him, so he just smiled. I know. I'll make sure to pay attention tomorrow. You can go tell your sister about not taking her class tomorrow. I will tell Apollo and Vulcan for you, okay? Thanks, Dad. The young prince sped out of his home with a blast of wind, flying through the air at great speeds. Since his father had taught him how to manipulate the wind with his powers, he had been zipping around Olympus as fast as he could. His mother had scolded him several times when he accidentally crashed into one of his father's statues and shattered it to pieces. Any statue could be replaced, but Hira was worried sick up to the moment Apollo healed the ichor stain gash on Naruto's head. But Naruto had gained a considerable amount of control since then, so when his mother wasn't looking, he would still go as fast as he could. Feeling the wind contort around him made him feel powerful and in control, and it was just very cool. So, in less than a minute, Naruto flew all the way to Athena's temple. Athena, the god of wind, called out as he landed on the white marble floor of his sister's temple. You're still awake, right? Besides his parents' temples and the temple of Apollo, Athena's temple was Naruto's most frequented place. All his sisters and maidens already know exactly who he was and would bow to him as he walked past them. But unlike the other temples, Athena's was more complicated. Naruto knew his own home like the back of his hand, and despite Apollo's temple's incredibly bright walls, he could still find his way around, but he still had trouble with his sister's temple. The temple of Athena was built like a maze, or giant library. It was filled with identical columns with identical statues of the goddess herself at every corner of the place. Orange light from the illusion torches illuminated the place and casted perfectly patterned and proportional shadows along the most clear of white marble found on Mount Olympus. The only way to find his sister in such a place was to focus on her powerful signature, and Naruto was slowly floating his way to her. Athena, calling out the young god again with his hands cupped around his mouth. I'm over here, Naruto. Athena was once again inside her personal library, sitting in the midst of the thousands of aisles that together formed her non-fiction section. The goddess had once told Naruto that she'd not only read all of her books, but she'd also memorized all of them as well. Naruto believed his sister wholeheartedly. In the 2 years that she had been teaching him, she had never once opened a book to actually read. Every time she would just summon a book for him to read and recite it word for word, and it was amazing to see. Hey Athena, chirped the boy with a smile as he sat down next to his sister. A series of soft hooting from the side made Naruto smile. It was Glaucus, his sister's scared animal, and the first owl. Hello to you too, Glaucus. Athena smiled and placed Naruto on her lap. Why are you here? Naruto started to gently brush the back of his fingers against Glaucus' soft feathers. Dad told me to come tell you that I can't come to our usual lesson tomorrow. Athena raised an eyebrow and wondered what excuse her little brother had this time. Apparently April 22nd is the date of the festival of Jupiter and Juno and they want to take me to see the Roman camp. Glaucus suddenly turned and picked Naruto's hand before flying away. Oh, why'd you do that? Athena closed her eyes. I see. The blonde looked confused and turned around on his sister's lap. What is it, Athena? Since he became the god of family, Naruto could sometimes sense his family members' emotions, and he was slowly getting better at it. Is something wrong? I don't like the Romans, Naruto. Athena's power was slowly rising as her gray eyes looked incredibly intimidating. Why? I am Athena, the great Greek goddess and one of the most powerful Olympians, but when I become Minerva, I am merely a weak goddess. The Romans took my powers in warfare and gave it to others, like Bologna and Mars. Naruto frowned, but you are still stronger than them as Minerva, right? He had seen how Ares react to Athena. He was always scared of her beating him into pulp. Athena shook her head. No, I was weak and resentful in that form. I hate being Minerva, and as soon as the Roman Empire collapsed I'd never willfully return to that form. Sometimes, just like the others, I would turn into my Roman aspect, but I hate it every time. She hugged her brother closer and sighed. That's why I've never seen you as Minerva. Many of my children have tried to avenge me, but none of them have succeeded so far. Avenge you? They stole my statue, Naruto. Athena muttered darkly. The original Athena Parthenon in Athens was taken by the Romans when they conquered the Greek Isles. It made me weaker. It is the worst insult they could have possibly made towards me and I will never forget it. Did you take it back after Rome fell? No, Olympians aren't allowed to directly involve ourselves, so I sent my children to get it for me, but none of them ever made it. Naruto crossed his arms. Can I get it for you? Athena looked at him with a small smile. I'm not an Olympian, so I should be able to get it for you, and I've been to Rome with Nikon before, so I can find my way around the city. You're a god, so the rules apply to you as well, albeit being not as strict. And what's to weigh that you wouldn't become an Olympian yourself soon? You are the son of Father and Lady Hera, and that makes you entitled to a seat on the council even more than me. Athena giggled at Naruto's confused face and poked his forehead. And people have wanted to kick Ares or Dionysus off the council for a while already, so there is a high chance of you being promoted when you're fully grown. Naruto shrugged. Maybe, but I don't really want it. Nikon keeps saying that going the meeting are really boring. Athena smiled. That's because Apollo is lazy, and you don't want to be lazy. Whatever, before then I can still help you or your children get your statue back. Naruto smiled and sat up taller on his sister's lap. I'm getting stronger every day, you know, and I can soon bless humans just like you. I can bless them with powers over the wind or lightning, just like Dad can. Maybe, but not until you're older, little brother, said Athena with a smile as she kissed him lovingly on the forehead. You're still a little boy, so just focus on your studies for now. Naruto pouted. Fine. The wisdom goddess lifted her brother into her arms as she stood up and walked out of her library. The boy was still small enough to fit comfortably in her arms, and she couldn't help but smile when he wrapped his arms around her neck and snuggled into her. Athena felt closer to her little brother than perhaps everyone else in existence, including her own children. The little boy had easily made his way into her heart like no one else had before. He was her darling little brother and she loved him. The two godly siblings made their way to the temple's large dining hall and Athena placed Naruto down on one of the many marble chairs. The boy was still too short to reach the table with his height, but he hovered on the air to sit higher in his seat. Do you want anything to eat? Naruto grinned and shook his head. I got that covered. He clapped his hands together and a plate of chocolate chip cookies appeared in front of him, steaming hot and still soft at the center. Mommy taught me how to conjure up food. She says it's a part of being the god of family, cooking good home-cooked food. Naruto held up the plate for Athena. Try some, Athena. Athena smiled and bit into the nugget center of the cookie. These are very good. They taste just like the ones Lady Hera and Aunt Hestia make. Yep, Artie said so too. Chirped Naruto as he ate one of the cookies whole. She ate 4 plates before dinner and couldn't even eat what her hunters made for her after. Athena laughed. It was just like Artemis to eat so many cookies. When you learn how to make shepherd's pie, Artemis will probably want you to live with her. Naruto giggled and nodded happily. You know, One of my daughters also loved these cookies. The goddess sighed with a soft smile. I secretly sent a batch to her for her 6th birthday last year. Naruto smiled. Cool. So your daughter is my age? Yes, she was born a few weeks after you. Athena snapped her fingers and the holographic image appeared in front of them. Her name is Annabeth Chase. Naruto looked closer at the image and saw a young girl with golden blonde hair styled like princess curls sleeping peacefully on her bed. She looked very pretty and he smiled at the sight. She looks like you, Athena. Yes, she does, Athena replied proudly, and she's smart too. What's she like? She's still very young, like you, but she's not immortal, so she still is different from you. She's almost 7 years old and she already loves architecture and reading. I can tell that she will become a wonderful demigoddess and a great warrior. Will she be going to Camp Half-Blood? Athena sighed. Only small monsters are attacking her now, so it should be fine, but as she gets older she would need training and will have to go to camp. Naruto frowned at the mention of monsters. He had seen some of them on his travels with Apollo, some hellhounds, cyclops, several Caucasus bulls and even the Nemean lion, and all of them had fled the moment they sensed the presence of 2 gods. No monster would ever try to bother an Olympian, especially one as powerful as Apollo. But Naruto knew that demigods only had a fraction of their power and monsters wouldn't hesitate to attack them. It made him angry that a part of his family was being slaughtered and they weren't doing anything to help them. So you'll have her family bring her to camp? Athena sighed. Her family isn't being too useful right now. Naruto frowned as his sister continued. Her father married a woman and they birthed 2 sons together, and they are not paying enough attention to my daughter as they should. She's complaining about spiders in her bed and they don't believe her. The goddess knew full well that spiders will always go after her children, and she wanted to smite Frederick for ignoring her daughter's plea. And the woman is angry at Annabeth for attracting monsters to her home and endangering her sons, and Annabeth clearly notices. Naruto crossed his arms. Can't we do something about it? Short of smiting them, no. This is why I wanted to become god of fatherhood. I want to stop these bad fathers from hurting their children. Naruto felt angry and unknowingly gathered storm clouds above Olympus. Why can't they see their mistakes when they are right in front of them? It's different for demigods, Naruto. Athena patted Naruto's head to sate his anger. The godly parent of demigods can't raise them, so they are always left in the hands of their mortal parent. In most cases these parents will feel burdened or troubled, having to raise the child on their own, especially since monsters will often come attack. But so what? Asked the blonde. They are their children, aren't they? The goddess smiled. Not everyone thinks like that, Naruto. Naruto huffed and shook his head. I don't like it. Well, as a god of fatherhood, maybe you can make it better. Athena smiled and kissed her brother's cheek. But before that, you should get some sleep. Father is going to bring you to Camp Jupiter tomorrow and you need to be fully rested. The boy smiled and nodded. Okay. Good night, Athena. Good night, little brother. Camp Jupiter wasn't as cool as Naruto expected it to be. Perhaps it was because of what the Romans did to one of his favorite sisters, but he felt angry looking down at them. He hated seeing the angered and betrayed expression on Athena's face. It made him feel angry and sad as well. Naruto loved Athena and wanted to help her. He had half a mind to fly down to the camp and interrogate the leaders until they told him what the Romans did to the Athena Parthenon. Naru, are you okay? Asked Juno as she looked down at her baby. You look angry. Naruto gave his mother a smile. I'm fine, mommy. I'm just a little tired. Juno smiled and ruffled Naruto's hair. I told you to sleep earlier last night. She held onto his hand and guided him back to where his father was. Come, we'll show you where everything is. Jupiter had conjured a large white cloud to use for the occasion. It was solidified and an impromptu pavilion was settled upon it. Many of the gods and goddesses were present and they all lounged on it. Lady Vesta had conjured a large hearth in the middle of the pavilion and she along with Ceres and Venus sat around it. Naruto sat down next to his father and sipped on a glass of nectar. Athena isn't coming today, right? Jupiter smiled sadly and shook his head. I don't think so, son. Minerva rarely attends any Roman festivals. She doesn't even like attending her own festivals. She doesn't like to be called Minerva, Dad. Naruto frowned as he continued to sip on a drink that tasted like the ramen he had in Tokyo. Just call her Athena. That is her real name. Juno, having heard what her son said, smiled and patted his head. It was obvious that Athena had told Naruto about what the Romans had done to her. Knowing how loyal and loving her son was to the people he loved, Juno wasn't surprised at his sour disposition. Out of all his siblings, Athena was probably tied with Apollo and Artemis as Naruto's favorite. The queen hoped her son wasn't overly angry at the Romans. She didn't want to see a tornado destroy the camp on her festival. Naru, that's New Rome, said the queen as she pointed to the small town below them. That's where the Roman demigods live after they complete their service at Camp Jupiter. It's a nice little community and it is modeled after the original Rome. Naruto smiled. That looks pretty cool, I guess. And there's your temple, said Juno excitedly. We had the Romans build it the year you were born. Your statue will be built when you are fully grown, but some people already pray there for good weather. The young god nodded. Yeah, I hear them sometimes. Naruto will never forget the first time he heard a prayer. It was a strange sensation that made him a little stronger and he could hear the person's voice very clearly as if they were standing next to him. Though he was still waiting for someone to pray to him regarding fatherhood or family. Then that is Camp Jupiter, the place where Roman demigods trained to become a part of the legion. Jupiter nodded at his wife's words. Yes, and it is different from Greek training. Roman training focuses on teamwork and formations instead of individual skill. Naruto nodded. I know, Athena taught me all of it. The other gods were all enjoying themselves as he looked down at the nostalgic sight. Ah, I do miss the Roman bathhouses, muttered Venus with an incredibly gorgeous smile. Apollo, dressed in a formal business suit, smiled and nodded at the goddess of love as he held a glass of nectar in his hand. Yes, those were quite nice at times. Though I think I miss the music the most. Naruto smiled at his favorite brother. It was a little weird to see Apollo in his Roman aspect since he acted more calm and serious than usual. I'm rather indifferent, replied Diana as she stood next to her twin. Roman wits were not too different to the Greeks or even the Americans. I don't care for such simple leisure. Naruto frowned at the sight of Mars, by far his least favorite sibling. Even in his Roman form, who many found more tolerable and respectable, Naruto didn't like him. The Romans were disciplined and battle-hardened and that is all that matters. Naru, come over here. Naruto smiled at Diana and flew over to her. Hey, Artie. The goddess smiled and patted his head. Call me Diana when I'm in this form, little brother, okay, Anna. The huntress gave a small laugh as she held onto her brother's hand. Come sit with me over here. Naruto hadn't visited her hunting camp recently and she wanted to spend more time with her favorite sibling. The Romans are about to all pay tribute to your parents. They are all lined up at their temples with sacrifices and offerings. Naruto stared down at the formal-looking people. They all look serious. The Romans are stricter than the Greeks, especially on these special occasions. It was a little boring for Naruto, so he just looked up at his sister. Do you want anything to eat, Anna? Diana's eyes sparkled as she licked her lips. I wouldn't say no to some cookies. Naruto giggled and clapped his hands together, making a plate full of peanut butter cookies appear on his lap. He gladly held up the plate for his sister, who immediately grabbed one and wolfed it down. Naruto knew his mother was right. Cooking for family and watching them enjoying the food felt good. Don't eat so much, Diana, or you'll get fat. The huntress rolled her eyes at Venus. Whatever, Venus. The young prince smiled up at the lady who looked like a mixture of his mother, Athena and Artemis. Do you want some, Venus? The goddess pouted. AWW, don't you have a cute nickname for me? Naruto would usually call Aphrodite died, but he didn't have one for her Roman aspect. Venus smiled and kissed him on the cheek. It's fun if you call me died. My Greek and Roman aspects are identical. Love is universal after all. Naruto nodded. So do you want some, died? Sure! Exclaimed the most beautiful goddess before she bit into one of the heavenly cookies. Peanut butter, one of America's greatest accomplishments. She smiled and hugged the little god close as she kissed his forehead. I'm so glad there is one male god who can cook well. All your brothers can't cook a meal to save the world. The blonde giggled. Mother and Aunt Hestia taught me their magic. Immortal, strong, handsome, a family man, a guaranteed great father. and a wonderful chef," listed the goddess as she sighed. "You are going to be a very good catch when you are fully grown." "Yep." Apollo patted his little brother's head and grabbed a cookie. "You're going to be a real hit with the ladies when you're older, Naruto." Diana smacked her twin upside the head and glared at him. "Stop trying to corrupt him." She turned to the goddess of love and glared at her harshly. "And you keep your claws off my little brother." Venus pouted as Diana hugged Naruto protectively, blocking him from the goddess. "I'm not going to let you take advantage of his love for family." "You're just saying that because Naruto might have a crush on Zoe." "He doesn't have a crush on Zoe. He just thinks she's really pretty." "AWW, but I'm prettier, right Naruto?" Venus winked at the child, but was violently pushed back when Diana blasted her with a wave of power, her body flickering, almost showing her godly form. "Stay away, you pedophile." Naruto couldn't help but smile as he looked at his family bickering with each other. They weren't that different in their Roman forms. They were dressed more formally and their insults weren't as degrading, but they were basically the same. They may appear vastly different to demigods or humans, but to Naruto, they were still his family. He could feel the love they all had for him and it felt the same as when they were in their Greek aspects. He laughed as the bickering Olympians were all called over to Jupiter to receive his scolding. Unfortunately for them, his father was even scarier as Jupiter. "Hello, Naruto." The young prince looked behind him and saw his sister, his Roman sister, Belle. Naruto had only met the goddess Bologna a few times, but he loved her nonetheless. She was nothing like her twin, Mars. Bologna was sweet and charming, a little like Athena in her own right, besides her being the Roman war goddess. She taught Naruto briefly on how to use a shield to defend as well as attack the few times she visited their mother's temple, and Naruto would love her lessons. Bologna wasn't nearly as powerful as Athena, but as a sister, she treated Naruto with just as much respect. "How are you doing?" asked the Roman goddess, "still making Mars angry every day?" Naruto chuckled. "Yep. So I heard you are also the god of fatherhood and family now," Bologna stated as she crossed her blood-stained armor. "Interesting choices. I didn't expect you to choose such sentimental domain given how powerful your other domains are." "I love my family and I just want to make sure they're all happy." Naruto grinned and crossed his arms. "It's nice to see everyone together and happy. You take after mother more than you do father." Yep, everyone had told Naruto how much he resembled his father, but he thought he was more like his mother. He inherited a part of both his parents' domains, but he enjoyed being the god of fatherhood and family more than the god of violent storms and the four winds. He fully agreed with his mother's belief of family and the sanctity of marriage. He would never play around with multiple women like his father did in the old days. "You really love your family," Bologna said as she placed a hand on his shoulder, "which is why I need your help, Naruto." The goddess suddenly frowned, which made Naruto worry. "As the god of fatherhood, you are the only one who can help me right now." "What is it, Belle?" He could sense his sister's conflicting emotions as she struggled to tell him her problem. "It's my daughters." Bologna sighed and led her young brother to the side of the pavilion. "They are having a lot of trouble with their father, and I can't help them without violating the rules. But since you are the god of fatherhood, you are well within your domain if you were to help them with their situation." Naruto nodded. "Of course I'll help them. They are my nieces after all." Bologna looked relieved. "Thank you." She knew she couldn't ask any of the Roman gods and she didn't really know their Greek aspects that well. When she heard about Naruto's new domains she knew he would be her only hope of helping her children. "I owe you, little brother." "Don't be silly, Belle, you're my sister." He smiled and laced his fingers behind his head. "What are the girls' names?" "Hila and Reina." I hope you all liked the video. And if you all want the next part of this video please like the video and comment 3 hearts. Please subscribe to my channel so whenever I upload a video you will notify.